Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with this week in cannabis news from September 19th to the 25th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. And there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. We got a lot of news this week, and while a lot of it doesn't mean a whole lot until Schumer actually holds a vote on SAFE, which we've been waiting for like 16, 17, 18 months now, it is better to hear all of these small steps taking place than to not have them taking place at all. Could it be some foreshadowing or simply more bullshit from the bullshit king schmuck Schumer himself? It's really hard to tell, but regardless, SAFE is still a when not if scenario. So we're going to run it through. Thank you, Tom Engel of Marijuana Moment, for sharing. Interesting. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Rep. Ed Perlmutter spoke about cannabis banking apparently at the White House, of all places, with the top senator saying he is working on it. And so while we've heard this before, Schumer's just reaffirming the same stuff that he's been saying over and over for the last 18 months. So I'm going to leave this article below if you wanted to read through it yourself, but mainly just sharing that at least talks are better than no talks at all. While Tom Engel did share what came out of that key subcommittee was the House Judiciary Committee approved bills to automatically seal records for certain federal cannabis convictions and provide funding to states to facilitate expungements. And so this is one story from Marijuana Moment. You can grab the link below if you wanted to reference that. While we also have this one from High Times. Same story, but ultimately, again, it doesn't mean a whole lot till it gets through to the Senate, right? So while I'm reporting this, take it with a grain of salt until we really see some sort of movement from schmuck Schumer. But the U.S. House Judiciary Committee advanced the Clean Slate Act and the Fresh Start Act, both of which seek to redress prior pop busts and arrests. So again, could this be foreshadowing of some sort of setup so that if we get the scenario where the lame duck happens, SAFE Plus, could these things be included that would help, get non-violent drug offenders out of prison and by basically, changing what they've been put in jail for? Don't know, obviously speculating, but I think that's certainly one way that this could be interpreted. Could these be preparations for SAFE Plus? We don't know, obviously plan accordingly for your own situation, but again, better to see this happening than not. And so lastly, we're seeing again, Corey Senator Booker talking more about this after a long period of being quiet on it. And so Tom Engel sharing today, Senator Cory Booker, this is September 23rd, and Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman spoke at a conference about the need for justice-focused cannabis reform, and a PA official said that thousands of people applied for cannabis pardons under the government's project this month. And so happy to see that people are obviously taking advantage of PA taking this initiative, and we're seeing another example of the benefits of ending cannabis prohibition and reforming your laws in real time. And so again, doesn't mean a whole lot until we see something in the Senate, but better to see these key politicians, bullshitters of their times, at least speaking up as opposed to staying quiet. And so this one, lastly, U.S. Cannabis Council rounding off, as America's cannabis retail shops are required to conduct most business with cash, putting their staff, customers, and community in harm's way. We know this. This is the main thing I've been harping on, and why SAFE is sound policy to pass to make America legitimately safer. But, again, with the Dems, it's all about perception versus reality, but it doesn't have to be this way. So read Dennis's op-ed calling on Congress to pass the SAFE Banking Act. So again, not going to go through this, but if you're interested, this is published through realclearpolicy.com. Lawmakers can save lives by passing the SAFE Banking Act. And so again, this is why, as much as we're annoyed and we think that this is never going to happen, the sooner that they pass this, the sooner it solves a real big problem, and a lot of people can look at the cannabis industry in a different light, and we can help normalize it just once this gets through, for God's sakes. And so on to some state news, though. I wanted to visit a few southern states just to highlight that there's some progress down there, as well as 2 companies granted licenses to produce medical cannabis in Georgia. So while Georgia has seen massive delays, happy to release report that licenses have been handed out finally, and a major development in the industry in Georgia is that 2 companies were awarded Class 1 production licenses, one of them, of course, being Trulieve. So good job, Trulieve. Big ups to you guys winning that one, and then Botanical Sciences LLC. So for registered patients, this means they will soon be able to buy access to cannabis oil here in Georgia. And again, when they say soon, we don't know how soon. That's still, I think, in talks and yet to be determined. But while medical cannabis has been legal for years, patients weren't able to buy it, only able to consume it, which is very strange. And so obviously now they're figuring out ways to legally supply the demand. First step is allowing certain companies to cultivate like Trulieve. And so Trulieve officials say that they're building an indoor cultivation facility in Adel to produce the products to eventually sell. So again, while we were seeing a lot of delays out of Georgia, just happy to report some little progress here. And with that, a bit more on Georgia news, but this time from Puff Daddy sharing a few snippets that weren't included. And so take this with a grain of salt though, just because I don't know where he exactly got these figures. And I read through this article and it did not include how much cultivation space they'd win. But with Trulieve winning this Class 1 license, licensed in Georgia, apparently according to Puff Daddy. And so until I can prove him wrong by finding another definitive number that I will share, he does say that that comes with 100,000 square foot of cultivation, which is obviously phenomenal for Trulieve. It allows him to grow a lot of cannabis to convert into CBD oil to eventually, legally supply the demand for anyone in Georgia that needs access to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative. And with that, apparently 5 retail stores. Now keep in mind, this doesn't mean this is coming to Georgia anytime soon, but the process is at least starting. And so it's great for Trulieve that obviously getting another head start in a market that doesn't have too much MSO competition in it. So just happy to share that. While we move on with marijuana moment to Mississippi, is apparently they brought in $6 million from medical cannabis licensing fees before sales have even begun. So again, can't say that people don't want to get a head start in this industry if you give them the ability or equal access to opportunity to start. And so this comes from, apparently it's republished through Marijuana Moment from the Center Square, but just to highlight that through Monday, the state has called in nearly $6 million in license and one-time application fees from dispensaries, cultivators, transportation companies, processors, and testing operations in the state, according to information posted in the state's Department of Health website. And so even if they were to hopefully come up with some laws like we saw in California to reduce the amount of testing, just because if you're not testing for alcohol, why test for THC? There's no need. Regardless, the rest of this list also just highlights how many people benefit by ending cannabis prohibition, reforming the laws, and seeing how much industry can actually get involved and benefit with boosting up the economy and making more money. And so with that, while sales aren't expected to begin until November, there are already 113 licensed dispensaries on file with the state's Department of Revenue, the entity collecting fees and taxes. And the Department of Health did not respond to inquiries for the story. And so a bit more information here if you wanted to pause to read, but just happy because again, we wouldn't expect this out of a state like Mississippi, but of course, given equal access to opportunity, people want to jump on board and it's going to be popular. And so with that, onto the Office of Medical Cannabis use for this past week. So we look September 19th to the 23rd. We can see a lot of MSOs open up new dispensaries in Florida. Fluent opened one in Mary Esther. INSA opened one in Clearwater. Mauve opened one in Port Orange. Sanctuary Cannabis opened one in Boca Raton. And then Trulieve opened one in Edgewater. And so good to see companies continuing to expand in Florida, as if the share prices don't matter, because they don't necessarily in the short term. With that, qualified patient count did increase to 753,533, which is an increase of 2,222 week over week. So good to see that number back up over the 2,000 mark, as we do typically like to see. And then if we scroll down for the dispensations from September 16th to the 22nd, 2022, again, we see all the MSOs, the number of dispensaries active that they have in the state, and weekly the number of milligrams of THC sold, the number of milligrams of CBD sold, and the number in ounces of smokable flower sold. And so we can see across the board. But with that, we also have this great comp sheet from Pure Gilles. So again, thank you, Pure Gilles, for condensing this all into one easy, digestible visual for us, highlighting the Florida THC market share comp sheet top 8. So this is updated as of September 23rd, which was Friday, and so today we are Sunday, and we can see Trulieve number 1, but again, slowly losing a little bit week over week, and then Curaleaf coming up behind them at number 2, Liberty Health Sciences backed by Air Wellness at number 3, Mauve backed by Verano at number 4, and then Sortera Wellness at number 5 with a few more down the list. And so you can pause to read for a bit more info. And with that, a few more state stories is apparently momentum is building for legalization of recreational cannabis in Hawaii. And so obviously very far out from anything happening, but happy to hear as apparently a group of state leaders, dispensaries, and patients are crafting a plan to establish a system for the legislature to consider next session. So again, not anytime soon, but good news as apparently more lawmakers are supporting legalization than ever before as a way to diversify the economy and bring in more revenue for the state. That would be a massive growth driver, especially for tourism. So good to hear that progress, little bit of progress out of Hawaii, but still a long ways out. And lastly, thank you, Joe Graza, for sharing this one. Cannabis retailers selected in a lottery. By the end of this year, people could see stores open up that sell and grow. And so this is referencing Connecticut, again, a market expected to launch before the end of the year. And so companies that I believe MSOs that have a footprint in there would be Verano, Trulieve, and Air Wellness as well. And so with that, on to some MSO news. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this one. Is Curaleaf to expand in Connecticut as well ahead of adult use launch. There are currently 4 licensed medical cannabis medical cannabis growers in the state and 18 licensed dispensaries selling cannabis for medical purposes as of right now. And so more information on this article below if you wanted to read through it. But again, regardless of the share prices, MSOs continuing to expand and plan accordingly for the future as they ought to. While news from Air Wellness introducing apparently their award-winning cannabis brand Lost in Translation across 4 additional new states. And so while it's very helpful that New Jersey just launched, and while Air Wellness did not get to launch at the same time as the other MSOs, they will hopefully get their dispensaries approved, I think, or the 3 approved and open in New Jersey sooner than later, and hopefully this will also help drive sales out of there, as they've announced the launch of Lost in Translation, an award-winning cannabis brand known for sought-after genetics and terpene profiles across 4 additional states in Air's operational footprint, Arizona, Florida, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Lost in Translation is now available in 6 states states, including Massachusetts and its home state of Nevada. So a bit more information to learn about Air Wellness's award-winning brand there if you'd like. While Trulieve continues expanding, this time in West Virginia, another smaller state with less competition from other MSOs. So good to see Trulieve taking advantage early on as they've opened 2 new medical dispensaries, one in Milton, and so you can pause read for a bit more information about what they offer when they open a new dispensary, while the second one was opened in Bell. And so basically the same information here, but just going to read as Trulieve operates medical dispensaries across West Virginia now in Bell, Milton, the 2 new ones, plus Hurricane, Parkersburg, South Charleston, Weston, and 2 locations in Morgantown, with plans to open an additional dispensary location by the end of the year in Huntington. So again, good to see Trulieve again expanding where there's less competition. Hopefully this will help them in the long run, as that's likely their plan and why they're doing it. And with that, this one comes from the deep dive. Just wanted to share it as it's a summary with a lot of data that you can digest and use to make investment decisions and compare with what you already know. Is PI Financial, U.S. cannabis sector showcased strong Q2 earnings. And so with that, not going to go through it all, but there are some figures here again that you can pause to read. Figure 2, target price and rating summary. So this includes Trulieve Cannabis Corp, Air Wellness, Cresco Labs, Columbia Care, Lowell Farms, and Jushi Holdings. Looking at a target price change and then rating change from, I guess, investment analysts. And then if we scroll down, we can see revenue summary, company listed all the way down here, their symbol, their revenues from Q2 2022, Q1 2022, Q4 2021, Q3 2021, and then quarter-over-quarter revenue growth. And then another one, debt and lease summary. You got the company, the symbol, Q2 2022 debt, Q1 2022 debt, and then quarter-over-quarter debt increase or decrease, Q2 2022 leases, Q1 2022 leases, and then same quarter-over-quarter lease increase or decrease. And so a lot of information that you can pull out of this. You can grab the link below as well if you wanted to grab through it and just read through the whole thing. But very interesting one from the deep dive. On to snippets from investment firms. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this, but do take these with a grain of salt as this is still speculation, but these institutions have access to a lot more information than we do, so it's nice to be a fly on the wall and consider what they have to say. So BTIG on U.S. cannabis, House movement on restorative justice bills dovetails with our bullish view on cannabis banking effort. Could what happened passing out of the House be some ingredients for potential SAFE Plus? Again, we don't know. It's ultimately up to Schumer, but what did the House Judiciary Committee advance? More on the Clean Slate Act of 2021 and the Fresh Start Act of 2021 if you want to pause read. But good to hear that BTIG apparently remains bullish on cannabis banking in the lame duck. Cautiously optimistic as I am. And so with that though, on to Cowen on U.S. cannabis. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this one. And so while it does suck that apparently following yesterday's ruling in the Oklahoma Supreme Court, which denies cannabis legalization from appearing on the November ballot, prohibitionists did get one victory so far. The field appears to be set for adult use ballot initiatives in November 8th, with voters in 5 states, Arkansas, but there's still an ongoing battle, so it's still not definitive yet, but Maryland and Missouri, especially Missouri, where prohibitionists tried to attack, Maryland and Missouri, the 2 states we've been focusing on with large population and successful medical programs, they will see the ballot initiative in November, along with North Dakota and South Dakota, another state where we saw prohibitionists trying to fight in. Apparently voters will vote on that as well, and they'll get to decide again, although they already voted for it in 2020, but they just added, it's worth noting, however, that the votes may or may not be counted in Arkansas due to the ongoing legal proceeding, but nonetheless, still a victory for cannabis, I would say, in November in the coming election. And so with that, a bit more, Todd Harrison sharing what Jeffries has to say on U.S. cannabis. He says wasn't going to share, which may be a tell in itself, but Shana Tova to those observing. And so insights, further SAFE Plus developments, basically highlighting a lot of what I've been covering, but another source that you can try and take in and compare with what you already know. And then lastly, we got Roth on U.S. cannabis. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this one. Cannabis, second half 2022 outlook, long-term story intact, near-term headwinds expected. And so pause to read for a bit more information on what Roth has to say. And so with that, wanted to share this one from Pete Landrum, who works alongside Brady Cobb, one of the DC lobbyists. Just wanted to share. And while Pete and Brady have been wrong about their timing in the past, much like I have, much like many people have, simply because the corruption in Congress has gotten too big, where the Senate majority leaders work for multinational corporations as opposed to the will of the American people like they should, I still admire Pete's courage and willingness to share his 2 cents, because while some people will hate on it and say that, oh, he's just a grifter, I think more people will appreciate that he's still trying to give us a play-by-play and commentary on the ground. So thank you, Pete. And he did share this as of the 21st of September at a policy retreat with Republican senators last weekend. Fair confidence that SAFE with a very narrow plus has a decent chance in the November-December timeframe. Some coordination between select Dems and Republicans are taking place, but the hazard is if there's too much plus with SAFE, you lose our votes and they need 60. But this does make us optimistic, as in the last week's video, or I think a few back, it seems that Boris Jordan, executive chairman of Curaleaf, is pretty confident that they have at least 80 votes with SAFE as it is. And so what can they add without eliminating more than 20 votes to keep it above 60? We don't know. And so again, we honestly want to hope that there's a red wave that forces the lame duck session and forces the Dems' hand, but still a lot of speculation in the air. It's still all up to Schumer. But again, thank you, Pete, for sharing your 2 cents. And I just want to share this information to you because I do think he's trying his best to deliver us with accurate information, because we all want safe to pass and we want to make America safer, and that will be a side effect of passing safe. And with that, news out of Las Vegas, Nevada. So thanks, Todd, for sharing. Is apparently Las Vegas City Council votes to allow cannabis lounges. The City Council voted 5-1 against a motion to opt out of the process for licensing consumption lounges, effectively allowing lounges within city limits. And so I remember reporting on this in like early 2021. Nice, lounges are coming to LA. Well, not anytime soon again, but at least the vote to allow them finally to come has taken place. And so hopefully Las Vegas will see these lounges sooner than later, as that will be a big pull for tourism as well. So more information on that below if you wanted to grab the link too. And with that, just happy to report this story because it's just common sense at this point, but this should be blasted on news media outlets everywhere, especially the mainstream ones. Marijuana Movement reports local cannabis business bans are helping illicit markets thrive in legal states. Report finds, obviously, as a new report demonstrates that legal regulated cannabis stores put illicit cannabis dealers out of business. Yeah, no shit. That's the whole point of a legal adult use market. Over time, you're going to phase out the illicit market because you're going to provide access to a safe product that's tested, that people can trust, and by opening many dispensaries to legally supply the demand, you're going to bring the prices down, making it affordable for everybody. Therefore, the organized crime groups in the black market won't sell cannabis anymore because it's not going to be lucrative or profitable. They're going to have to switch to something else, and that's what police are for, and that's why we don't need to be criminalizing people for cannabis once we can phase them out and have legal adult use markets successfully replacing the illicit market. Like, no shit. But obviously, if you hadn't thought it through that far, that is essentially what this is getting at. And so a bit more information from this, the source, I think, leafly.com, but just wanted to share this one from Jeremy Burke, who writes for Business Insider Trading. Interesting new report from Leafly, same one though referenced in the last one, which puts some data to what seems like an obvious correlation. The more legal cannabis stores per capita in a state, the less robust the illicit market remains. It's just obviously common sense. And so hopefully this becomes more common sense or more mainstream knowledge, as obviously everyone would benefit by understanding this, helping normalize cannabis, helping reform the laws, and, making the world a little bit better place as we go along. And so with that, bit more news. CNBC shares check in, smoke up, and tune out as cannabis-friendly vacation rentals are catching on. So I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but just sharing that, obviously, the more normalization we can get, the better. Cannabis-friendly vacation rentals have been popping up as legalization of recreational cannabis expands into more states. So niche sites such as budandbreakfast.com offer databases of listings for cannabis-minded travelers. Minority entrepreneurs are among those hoping to cash in on the business. Good. Well, as long as you provide equal access to opportunity to everybody, then all entrepreneurs, especially minority entrepreneurs, can hopefully cash in. But main thing to highlight is that apparently as of right now, tourism for cannabis more broadly is also now at $17 billion already of an industry. And so according to recent data from Forbes, so I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but you can pause to read or you can grab the link below. But so to round this off, a little bit of news out of Canada, New Cannabis Ventures reports that Canadian cannabis sales increased 4.5% sequentially to another record. Still surprising to see this go up, but we're happy to see it go up as we don't want to see it start to go down at any point. Canadian $394.8 million in July. And so again, good to see Canada expanding. Stats Canada released July retail sales for the country with cannabis sales increasing from June by 4.5% to $395 million. The month was longer by 3.3%. June was revised from $377.5 million to $377.9 million. Sales were up 17.8% from a year ago, down from the 23.2% June growth rate. But the growth was the lowest ever year over year, behind the previous lowest annual growth rate of 19.2% in December. And so that's not ideal to see, but that will come as the market matures. And so a bit more information here if you wanted to pause to read, but simply to just break it down for you, we can look at Ontario, the province with the most people, 14 million, and they decided as of last January, I think, to start opening 120 stores a month. Now they're over 1,000 stores properly, legally supplying the demand, although not distributed as evenly as it could be. You got a lot of stores in the downtown cores having trouble competing when obviously rural areas could benefit from having more. But regardless, we see them jump up from June 2022, 152 million up to 159.4 million. So again, love to see Ontario leading the way, while Quebec, our second most populated province with just 50 stores, they don't want to open anymore. The government monopoly stays at a shitty 50 million in sales that they've seen across the board. Unfortunately, you suck Quebec, but then on top of that, we've got Alberta leading the charge, going from 67 to 69 million from June to July, and then BC moving up from 54 million to 57 million from June to July. And so I'll have to report that. More information on this link below if you wanted to check it out. Last few stories, though, just sharing as TLRY, another one of the Canadian LPs, will be announcing their first quarter fiscal 2023 financial results on October 7th. And so, as time goes on, we just, the next quarter comes along, and this does remind us, and it just is a bit of, for some reason, it feels like deja vu, because I do remember not expecting much out of any of the TLRY announcements in the summer heading into the fall of 2020 after, the pandemic low and all that. I wasn't expecting much, and then sure enough, we saw TLRY rise from like $5 to $35. And so I guess what I mean by that, though, is that while the sentiment right now seems like it's the worst ever for the cannabis industry, for me, it really just feels like we're almost putting ourselves back in the summer of 2020 as well, when no one was expecting anything. And then sure enough, Aphria ended up buying Sweetwater, and then TLRY and Aphria announced the merger. And then we saw the Dems sweep the election. People thought cannabis could actually, happen sooner than later. And we saw that run up in February only to come down since. But the fact is, the companies, especially the tier 1 US MSOs, have only gotten stronger fundamentally since then, while the share prices have come all the way down. And so regardless of what you see that as, opportunity or disaster, take advantage, because obviously it's usually darkest before dawn when the trend changes. And so last story, an interesting development out of Iranian Biomedical Journal, but again, just wanted to share this. The anti-tumorigenic effect of CBD in lung cancer. What do we know so far? A systemic review. So you can pause to read the whole thing, but just to run you through it quickly, is lung cancer remains a major factor contributing to morbidity and mortality worldwide. And so we systematically searched the following databases: Medline, clinicaltrials.gov, Central, and Google Scholar using a structured algorithm. A total of 246 studies were screened, and 9 studies were included in the systemic review, all of which were conducted in vitro, and 4 of which also had an in vivo component. So obviously in vitro is through test tubes, where in vivo is actually in people. Obviously we'd rather see studies done in vivo, but as of right now, because cannabis is still Schedule 1, most is still in vitro. But regardless, the findings are what we want to focus on, as we concluded that CBD has direct anti-neoplastic effects on lung cancer cells by various mechanisms mediated by cannabinoid receptors or independent of them. All studies referred to in an in vitro model. So again, obviously, if we can deschedule cannabis, then we can look at more in vivo studies. But as of right now, so same thing we'll see in another study. So further research is required for this data to have any clinical applications. And obviously, the sooner we can deschedule cannabis, the sooner we can get that research. But nonetheless, when we see that CBD has a direct anti-neoplastic effects on lung cancer, and when we look at what is anti-neoplastic meaning, drugs are medications used to treat cancer, it seems like they're saying right here we concluded CBD has a direct positive effect at reducing lung cancer cells. And so that's awesome. Love to share this positive news. Hopefully we can see it in the mainstream one day, but I'm happy to deliver it to you right now and get you in the know. But that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for midweek update. Have a great weekend, everybody.